Wow, it's been a while, but man, am I happy to be back. Now that the NFL playoffs are in full swing, I am rooting for my Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, today we are doing something special, and I think you guys are going to love it. It is called the Heroes and Villains of the Year Awards, and it's gonna be awesome. So maybe you should stop talking so we can get so we can get that going. Let's get the intro started.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to our year recap show where we're going to go over kind of every position that we talk about in fantasy football. We're going to give you all a rundown on who we thought were our heroes and villains of the year. We're going to give our heroes of the year awards, our villains of the year awards at every position. These were players that we had rostered on our fantasy lineups that either really helped us win or they really helped us lose. So, we had some big hits, we have some misses, and we're going to categorize that like we always do in our heroes and villains segment. So let's get it started, Mason. Who was the superhero of the year award for you at the quarterback position and why?
Sam Darnold was my fantasy football superhero at the quarterback position this season, and it all started with him being written off by most. Coming into the year, Darnold was buried on the depth chart behind rookie J.J. McCarthy, who had already been slated as the starting quarterback. However, when McCarthy got injured, Darnold was thrust into the starting role with little fanfare and low expectations. Critics and fans alike had already decided that Darnold's career was essentially over, but he proved everyone wrong by stepping up in a huge way. Not only did he secure the starting job, but he delivered massive fantasy points week after week after week, showing that he still had tons left in the tank. His performance transformed him from an afterthought into a fantasy football dynamo, exceeding expectations by a wide margin. Darnold's numbers this year were nothing short of spectacular, especially considering the circumstances. He finished fifth in the league for most passing yards, which is no small feat in a season filled with high-powered offenses. To make things even more impressive, he threw the fourth most touchdown passes, demonstrating his ability to find the end zone consistently. Darnold's ability to perform at such a high level after being counted out was a testament to his resilience and skill. Many fantasy managers were able to ride his red-hot production to success, especially in fantasy leagues that reward passing yards and touchdowns. In the end, Sam Darnold was the fantasy football superhero who defied all odds and delivered when no one expected him to.
Yeah, that's a really good call. I mean, he may not have been the best quarterback overall in fantasy football, but where you found him and where you got him, and the games that led into the playoffs, into championships weeks, Sam Darnold was the guy. So good call on that. Had some Sam Darnold in some of my lineups, so he definitely helped me.
He was consistently 20 points like every game. It's like astonishing.
So for me, my superhero MVP at the running back position. And, I'm going to go with this year's awesome guy, Saquon Barkley. He emerged as a true hero of the running back position as the unstoppable force of the Eagles. Barkley has been smashing records, saving games, and racking up points like a real-life superhero. While other players may try to be the villains, Barkley has been flying past defenders, leading his team to victory, and proving that he is the one you want on your fantasy squad. He's been consistent, a powerhouse, turning every game into a chance for his fantasy managers to score big. Barkley's heroic feats this season are nothing short of legendary. He's rushed for career high 2,005 yards, becoming only the ninth NFL player in history to break the 2,000-yard mark. Not only that, he topped 100 rushing yards in 11 out of 16 games this season, showing week after week when his team needed him the most. One of the greatest moments came to a showdown against the Rams where Barkley rushed for 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, a true superhero showstopper move. He also became just the third running back in the NFL to score 4 touchdowns of 60 or more yards, proving his explosive game-changing ability. Barkley is the hero who doesn't just make plays, he makes history, folks. Whether it's saving the day with clutch plays or leading the Eagles' offense to dominance, Barkley has been the hero who carries his team and your fantasy team to victory. Saquon Barkley. Mason, what do you think about that?
I think it's great. And since Barkley rushed for 255 yards and 4 touchdowns, aren't they playing the Rams in the playoffs? Uh-oh.
Could be a big one.
Yeah. So for my wide receiver position, somebody I personally did not expect to even come close to what happened. Brian Thomas Jr. was my superhero at the wide receiver position for fantasy football, especially considering he was a rookie who came in, immediately made an impact. Despite being in his first year, he finished with the 3rd most receiving yards in the entire league, showcasing his incredible talent and readiness to compete at the highest level. His ability to perform at such a high level as a rookie made him a must-have player on my fantasy team, and he quickly became a key contributor every single week. Thomas was a rare rookie who not only adjusted to the pace of the NFL, but exceeded expectation in almost every single game, often putting up massive yardage and making spectacular catches. His skills and potential were undeniable, and I knew from the start that he would be a cornerstone of my fantasy roster for a season to come. The way he elevated his game so early in his career made him one of the most exciting players I had the pleasure of owning. What truly set him apart as a rookie was his ability to perform in critical moments, often rising to the occasion when my team needed him most. Even as the first-year player, Thomas Jr. showed poise, focus, and maturity far beyond his years, making big plays and contributing significantly to my team's success. His chemistry with his quarterbacks developed quickly, and he became the go-to target who could always be counted on for solid fantasy points. His production in his rookie season was one of the top young wide receivers in the league. Thomas Jr.'s rookie year was a defining moment in my fantasy football season, and I couldn't have asked for a better player to help propel my team to the top. His potential future dominance was exciting, and his performance this season made him a true superhero for my fantasy squad.
He was good for a lot of people that had him. He finished as the wide receiver 4 as a rookie. Some sensational games, especially down this stretch in the playoffs here, fantasy football playoffs. He was ready to go, and it was hard to see him coming, but when he did well. And I'm going to talk about another rookie who broke records, and he had a superhero kind of year, and I'm talking about Brock Bowers. Has unquestionably earned his place as the superhero of tight ends, despite the Raiders facing a turbulent season with quarterback changes, then lots of quarterback changes, probably more than I have comic books in my basement. Bowers remained the steady force every fantasy manager needed with 112 receptions. That is a rookie record breaking kind of situation here. Almost 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns. He finished 3rd in the NFL in receptions, proving he's not just another tight end, but the superhero your fantasy roster needed week after week. Bowers has been one that you can depend on and deliver on those clutch plays, making him a game changer you can rely on when your team needs to rise above. Bowers' rookie season has been nothing short of legendary, making like a superhero origin story. He broke records with the most reception and yards by a rookie tight end, and his first all-team pro selection proved his greatness even in his debut season. Bowers showed in critical moments, delivering big performances that turned games around, even when the Raiders struggled. Bowers was the hero who stepped up, and his teammates, defensive star Max Crosby, couldn't help but praise him and his remarkable achievements. Bowers has become the centerpiece of the Raiders offense, and they're going to build around him for years. Fantasy football managers, Bowers has proven he's steady, reliable. He's the hero you can count on week after week to win your battles and lead you to victory. So, yeah, that was a really cool scenario here, Mace. We got the heroes done. We're going to get into the villains right away. But before we do that, we definitely need to hear from our sponsors, the Fantasy Sports Advice Network, where, we can go on that platform. We can get some pretty cool things like the merch stores on there, some really cool hats and gear. Follow the forecast. You're going to be able to find our merch on that. And maybe soon to be the Fantasy Football Funhouse might emerge a hat or two on there when I talk to Amber about doing that. So how cool would that be? Anyhow, let's hear from our sponsor.
The hero of all fantasy football platforms.
There it is, the hero of the platforms. Let's go, Mace.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.
All right, we are back, and we've got some villains to get on here. The guys in our lineup that we thought we might have been the superhero when we drafted them or picked them up, but ended up being the guy that hurt our lineup the most. And they might be some pretty big names in this scenario here, and not easy to call some of these guys villains, but that's exactly what they were in our lineups. Mason, why don't you start us off with the quarterback that was the villain of the year?
For me, CJ Stroud, despite having a promising rookie season, earned the title of villain of the year at the quarterback position due to a significant regression in performance during his sophomore campaign. After displaying remarkable composure and skill as a rookie, many expected Stroud to build upon that momentum. But instead, his stats took a dramatic downturn. His once impressive passing yards to touchdown to interception ratio and overall accuracy became inconsistent, leading to frustrating losses for his team. His failure to develop further or adapt to the challenges of the NFL in his second year was a tough blow for fans and analysts who had high hopes for his continued growth. Moreover, Stroud's inability to adjust to defensive schemes and his tendency to force passes into difficult situations turned himself into a consistent liability for his team. His decline was especially noticeable in comparison to his stellar rookie numbers, which only highlighted how much he had fallen off track. For a quarterback expected to lead his team to success, his regression felt like a betrayal of the potential he showed. And it was this drop-off in performance that solidified his place as my villain of the year at the quarterback position.
Yeah, there's nothing that you can argue about that. CJ Stroud was getting drafted pretty high after that rookie season. People thought that, bringing in Stephon Diggs would be the answer that they needed to get him to the next level. But, outside of a couple big games in 2023, CJ Stroud rookie season wasn't that prolific when you think about it. He had that 5 touchdown game, which I think really boosted his average and got people drafting him out of, the range where he should have been drafting him. And
only 5 interceptions too.
Yeah. So, those were things that were, leading towards a good season for CJ Stroud, but the wheels fell off. Tank Dell had that injury. So did Stephon Diggs and
Collins in the earlier year.
Yeah. And they were relying on the running game quite a bit. So, yeah. All right. I'm going to talk about a villain at the running back position. And every season has its villain, and this year, Travis Etienne was the one you loved to hate. Promised as a top-tier running back, he became the dark force that crushed my fantasy dreams in some of my leagues. Fantasy owners thought they were getting a superhero, but instead they got a villain who let them stuck in the shadows. In a pivotal game against the Colts, Etienne rushed for just 31 yards on 13 carries and caught 3 passes for 29 yards. That's like expecting a powerful villain to strike with a devastating move, but instead they fumble and fail, leaving you utterly disappointed when you needed them the most. Etienne's villainy didn't stop there. Despite a higher snap share, he was outshined by up-and-coming Tank Bigsby and took control of the red zone opportunities. It was as if Etienne, the supposed hero, was left in the background while Bigsby stole the spotlight. This is the classic villain scenario. He had the chance to take the lead, but instead he allowed someone else to take his place. Bigsby, with more consistent runs and ability to score quickly, became the new hero in the Drags backfield, making Etienne look more like a sidekick who could never deliver that knockout punch. Fantasy managers who once believed Etienne's potential now found themselves cursing his lackluster performances, and he failed to deliver those explosive plays he did in 2023, and that, the ones that we were hoping for. As the season continued, it was clear that Etienne had become the villain of many fantasy teams. His inability to produce critical moments, coupled with Bigsby's rise, turned Etienne from a promising hero to one who left fantasy managers hanging. And with his diminished role, constant struggles, he became the type of villain you just couldn't escape from. Fantasy owners who trusted him were left with empty stats, a bitter taste of regret, much like the villain who promised greatness but ultimately fails. Etienne's season was a letdown, and his performance will haunt fantasy managers who took a chance on him. Moving into next season, he's got some potential, but be wary. Villains like to strike again, and he won't be the hero you need on your fantasy squad. Now, Mason, another hero that turned villain this year. Who you got?
Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill was my villain of the year as the wide receiver position in fantasy football because despite his immense talent, he consistently disappointed with far too many low-scoring games. While Hill had a couple of monster performances that lit up fantasy scoreboards, those were few and far between. In contrast, he often struggled to break double digits, leaving fantasy managers frustrated with his underwhelming contributions. For most of the season, his performances felt like a constant roller coaster of disappointment, as he often posted low single-digit fantasy points, especially in matchups where he should have thrived. This inconsistency made him incredibly difficult to trust him as a weekly starter. What made Hill even more frustrating was that his few big games couldn't make up for the numerous 5-point duds he posted. Fantasy owners who drafted him with high expectations found themselves constantly questioning whether he was worth the risk. His boom or bust in nature left many feeling like they were playing Russian roulette with their fantasy lineups. As a result, Tyreek Hill's inability to consistently produce at a high level, despite being one of the most talented receivers in the league, made him a nightmare for fantasy managers this season and earned him the title of Villain of the Year at wide receiver.
Yeah, unfortunately. And I got a tight end that entered 2024 with all the promise of a superhero in a pass-happy offense, especially with the Bills losing key receiving weapons. Fantasy managers, including myself, were ready to step up as the tight end, but instead he quickly became the ultimate villain despite being the most targeted player on the team in week 14 with 7 passes thrown his way. Dalton Kincaid only managed 53 yards, leaving us feeling betrayed like sidekicks who were promised a hero but got nothing in return. Even more frustrating, Kincaid failed to exceed 10 PPR points in 8 of his 11 games played. He also was injured, highlighting his letdown to owners at every turn. His lack of consistency production was like a villain who talks a big game but never delivers, consistently teasing with small performances that never matched expectations. Kincaid's villainy, it's always up in the air here. His 1.45 yards per route run showed he couldn't create separation from defenders, leaving him largely ineffective on the field. Even in a dominant victory over the Jets in Week 17, Kincaid's presence, it was barely felt as he caught just 2 passes for 24 yards. Hardly the hero performance fantasy managers hoped for. To make matters worse, he failed to score touchdowns in 5 of the last 7 games, a true betrayal when fantasy managers needed him the most. Kincaid became the villain in disguise, showing up just enough to keep you hanging on, but never sealing the deal with crucial fantasy points. His season was the perfect villain's plot. Lots of hype, but ultimately he was the tight end who left us staring at the scoreboard, wondering where our hero had gone. Now,
I was super high on Kincaid. I traded away Trey McBride for Kincaid. That was not a very good idea.
No kidding. So, I mean, that happens in fantasy football. Sometimes you feel your gut and sometimes your gut doesn't happen, right? So let's move on, Mason. We got one more segment here to hit up, and that's our top 5s because, we're going to head into this off season. We're going to do a couple more shows as we go. It won't be a weekly thing, but, every couple of weeks we'll put on new episode out and continue the fun house because everybody likes a little bit of fun in their house. So let's get into the top 5s, May. So what is your top 5? What are we talking about today?
Fast food restaurants.
All right.
Let's start with our 5s. My 5 is A&W.
A&W. All right.
They have the best combo. They've got 3 chicken fingers and a root beer. And if you haven't tried the root beer, what are you doing?
What are you doing? The root beer is the best. All right. So let's talk about my number 5. And I'm gonna agree with you. I like A&W. What's number 4?
Popeyes. I think I put this a little too low. Maybe I'm gonna switch 3 and 4. Okay, Popeyes is at 3. My number 4 is McDonald's. Their chicken nuggets are pretty good, like the 10-piece. Their fries are incredible, and their chocolate milkshakes are literally to die for.
I like Chick-fil-A. That's my number 4. I like the chicken.
I didn't get to try it in the U.S. So
there you go.
Made me sad.
All right, number 3, Mace.
Popeyes. They have the best chicken drumsticks around, and my favorite fries. They have the Cajun fries, and they're absolutely delicious.
Five Guys Burger and Fries for me at number 3, coming in with the peanut oil French fried fries. Can't beat it. Make your sandwich the way you want it, and you're ready to rock.
Okay, my number 2 is Shake Shack. I tried it in the U.S. I got the Oreo one, I think, and I destroyed it in 2 minutes. And it was absolutely fantastic.
I'm a big fan of Shake Shack too. Number 2 for me, and my number 1 I'm gonna butt in here is my Popeyes chicken. Ooh, I love it nice and spicy. Let's go.
I like Burger King. They've got a nice Smartie milkshake, and they've got the chicken sandwich. They've got so much stuff that I'll just destroy.
Yeah.
They've got their chicken fries, which I want to try.
Awesome. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in, everybody, to our Fantasy Football Funhouse on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. Now, be sure to get your merch on our merch store on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network website. You can find it really easily there. It's on one of the tabs, so hit it up. Lots of good stuff there, and potentially look for the Fantasy Football Funhouse merch on that. So from all of us here on the Fantasy Football Advice Network, what do we always say?
We hope you win.
We hope you won, and have some fun. Peace out, everybody.
We are here. We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to fantasysportsadvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to fantasysportsadvice.com today.